Good evening and welcome to Boston. This is Kimberly Sellers Bates, founder and president of KSTB Enterprises. I come to you each Thursday at 7 p.m. for 10 minutes with 10 business tips. I'd love to hear from you, so please contact me at kbates at kstbenterprises.com or 770-756-7565. Today, we're going to talk about your nonprofit articles of incorporation, including the wording that the IRS expects to be included in your articles. You know, many a 501c3 has been rejected because they didn't include in their articles the specific wording required by the IRS. I'm going to give you the specific wording in this broadcast, but if you would like it in writing, simply email us at kstb at kstbenterprises.com, and in the subject line write 922 and we will email the IRS wording to you. So let's get started. Your nonprofit articles of incorporation is a legal document that's filed with the Secretary of State to create your nonprofit corporation. This process is called incorporating. In some states, the articles of incorporation is called the Certificate of Incorporation or Corporate Charter. The articles function like a constitution for your nonprofit. The fees for filing your articles of incorporation can vary widely among the different states. Some are less than $100, but some go up to around $1,000. So there is a variation among the states, but most states do require the following pieces of information that must be included in your articles of incorporation. The items are the name of your corporation, the corporation's place of business, the name and address of the corporation's registered agent, the statement of the corporation's purpose, the duration of the corporation, the number of shares the corporation is authorized to issue, the names and addresses of the incorporators or of the initial officers or directors, and one or more of the incorporator's signatures. Finally, there is specific wording that the IRS requires to be in the document. So let's take each one of those piece by piece, okay? First, the name of your corporation. You know, providing the name of your corporation might seem really simple. You put the name of the corporation, which typically must include corporation or incorporated, or an abbreviation of one of those, such as Inc. or Corp. Be careful because most states won't allow two companies to have the same name, nor will they allow your corporation to adopt a name that's similar to another company's name. For instance, if you submit articles of incorporation for a company named ABC Inc., and there's already a company named ABC LLC in your state, your filing will be rejected. So to avoid this rejection, I want you to just do a simple search of a business name. You can Google it, but more importantly, go to your Secretary of State site and search for the company name that you want. Make sure that it's not already taken. Next, the corporation's principal place of business. Some states require that you include the address of the nonprofit principal office, whether or not the address is inside or outside of the state of incorporation. So you definitely want to have an address. Let's not do a post office box, do a physical address. Some post office boxes do have physical addresses, but I would just be very careful with that, okay? If there's any question, contact your Secretary of State. Next, the name and address of the corporation's registered agent. You know, some people say, I have no idea what a registered agent is. Well, actually, the registered agent is someone that you designate to receive the official papers for the corporation. These can be certain notices from the state, any type of legal documents. Okay, so the registered agent needs to be, actually, they must be located in the state where your corporation is formed, and you must provide a physical street address for the agent. You can decide that an officer of your corporation will be the registered agent, and the address will be the corporation's business location. Some people decide that they want to appoint a separate individual, such as their attorney or even a company, to act as the registered agent. So it's up to you. Next, the corporation's purpose. Now, most states don't require you to be extremely specific about the purpose of your corporation. So it's generally not advisable to provide a very specific statement. I advise you to do a general statement such as the purpose of the corporation is to engage in any lawful activity for which corporations may be incorporated in this state. That's usually sufficient. In many states, this type of statement will actually be pre-printed on the Secretary of State's Articles of Incorporation form. Now, if your state requires more detail, try to still be as general as possible. For example, for a business that you initially expect to be focused on designing logos, consider a statement that says something like to provide logo design services and to engage in any other lawful activity for which corporations may be incorporated in this state. Now, although the articles is a formal corporate document, the IRS requires the inclusion of specific language in the statement of purpose. So I'm going to give the corporation's purpose to you right now. This is the one that the IRS requires. Although I'm going to give it to you now, if you want it in writing, all you have to do is email us at kstb@kstbenterprises.com, and in the subject line put 922, and then we will email the IRS wording to you. Okay, you ready? So the IRS wants you to say, said corporation is organized exclusively for charitable, religious, educational, and specific purposes, including for such purposes the making of distributions to organizations that qualify as exempt organizations under Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code or the corresponding section of any future federal tax code. I know that was a lot. So, again, for the organization's purpose, for your corporation's purpose, that is the specific IRS wording that they want. If you did not get all of that, simply email us at kstb@kstbenterprises.com, put 922 in the subject line, and we will send that IRS wording to you. Next, the corporation's duration. Some states are going to ask how long your nonprofit corporation will be in existence. You should always answer perpetual unless you know that your nonprofit has a definite termination date. Next, information about the number of shares the corporation is authorized to issue. You are required to indicate how many shares of stock the corporation is authorized to issue. Many states will also ask you to indicate if the corporation is authorized to issue more than one class of stock. Next, the names and addresses of incorporators or of the initial officers or directors and one or more incorporator signatures. An incorporator is the person who's actually preparing and filling out and filing the formation documents with the state. Most states require the name and signature of the incorporator or incorporators to be included in the Articles of Incorporation. Some states also will require that you include the incorporator's address. Some states require that you list the names and addresses of the initial directors of the nonprofit in the articles. In other states, you're not required to identify them, although you may do so if you choose. Keep in mind that when the initial directors are not named in the articles, the incorporator or the incorporators have the authority to manage the affairs of the corporation until directors are elected. Now, in this capacity, they can do whatever is necessary to complete the organization of the nonprofit, including they can call an organizational meeting for adopting bylaws and for electing directors. As I mentioned earlier, at least one incorporator will need to sign the articles, and if there are multiple incorporators, generally they must all provide their signatures along with their addresses. Now, I know I've said a lot about what to include in your articles, but I do want to make this disclaimer. In the end, if you make a mistake, you can always amend or restate your articles of incorporation. If you must amend the articles, you can do so by filing the articles of amendment with the same state official with whom you submitted your original articles, and that's usually the Secretary of State office. But like I always say, it's better to try to do everything right the first time. Now, I'm going to share with you a couple of sentences that the IRS requires to be in your articles of incorporation. So, according to the IRS, when reviewing your documents, they expect certain language. Now, also in your articles, the IRS wants you to include no part of the net earnings of the corporation shall inure to the benefit of or be distributable to its members, trustees, officers, or other private persons, except that the corporation shall be authorized and empowered to pay reasonable compensation for services tendered and to make payments and distributions in furtherance of the purposes set forth in, they want you to name the article here. So, I know that was a little bit of a mouthful, but like I said, all you have to do is email us and we will send it over to you. Another piece that they want you to include is, and this is very, very important, upon the dissolution of the corporation, after paying or making provisions for the payment of all the legal liabilities of the corporation, assets shall be distributed for one or more exempt purposes within the meaning of Section 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code or the corresponding section of any future federal tax code, or shall be distributed to the federal government or to a state or local government for a public purpose. What that simply means is if the organization dissolves, that their assets after they've paid their liabilities will be distributed to another nonprofit organization. I've actually had that to happen more than once. I work with an organization right now where another organization dissolved, and the current organization that I'm with actually received a check from the organization that was dissolving. I know, again, I've said so much tonight. I tried to pack it all in these 10 minutes because it's so important to me that you get real information. I don't want you to ever leave our podcast boss them saying, they really didn't give me any information. I am very free with information and I want you all to have it because I want you all to do everything right the first time. I want to thank you so much for tuning into Boston and spending time with me. Remember, you can always reach me at kbates@kstbenterprises.com or 770-756-7565. Once again, if you missed any of the IRS wording, simply send us an email to kstb@kstbenterprises.com and put 922 in the subject line. I come to you each Thursday at 7 p.m. for 10 minutes with tips, talks, and motivation to help you achieve your goals. This is Kimberly Sellers Bates, founder and president of KSTB Enterprises. Remember, you'll be amazed at what you attract when you start believing in what you deserve. Vibe higher, guys. Talk to you next week. Bye.